Russia's Most Wanted Hackers, Berlin, May 2015. It begins with something so ordinary, so harmless, that no one would ever think twice about it. Claudia Heidt, an assistant in the German parliament, is trying to send an email on a warm Friday afternoon. The message is meant for a colleague. Nothing sensitive, nothing urgent, just routine. But when she types, something strange happens. The accent on a single letter refuses to appear. At first, she laughs. Computers freeze up all the time. She restarts Word. No change. She reboots her PC. Still the same. What Claudia doesn't know is that at this very moment, thousands of kilometers away, men in Moscow are watching her every keystroke. They already own her computer. And through it, they are prying open the digital doors of Germany's most guarded political network. She calls the internal IAT hotline, known simply as 117. She tells them maybe her machine has a virus, a Trojan perhaps. They brush her off politely. It's just a glitch, they assure her. Nothing serious. They couldn't be more wrong. Because while Claudia waits on hold, a silent war is unfolding. Russian military intelligence, the GRU, has launched an operation deep inside the Bundestag's servers. The hackers are known by a name that sounds almost childish, almost harmless, Fancy Bear, but what they are doing is anything but. 8 days earlier, on April 30th, dozens of German lawmakers received an email. It looked official, stamped with the authority of the United Nations. The subject line, Ukraine. The timing was perfect. The annexation of Crimea was still raw. Fighting raged in eastern Ukraine. Of course, every politician wanted updates. If the UN was sending information, you clicked it. And they did, one by one. But the email was bait, a carefully crafted trap. The moment Claudia and others opened it, malware slipped into their machines. No alerts, no warnings, just silence. From that moment on, the bears had them. Their objective was chilling, gain administrator rights, the digital equivalent of a master key. With it, they could move anywhere, touch anything, even break into Angela Merkel's office. And they did. By the time Claudia sat at her desk that Friday, the infection had already spread like wildfire. Hackers jumped from machine to machine, copying files, searching for secrets. The German chancellor's inner circle was now an open book. But no one in the building had a clue. The Bundestag kept running as usual. Staffers wrote reports, drafted speeches, made phone calls, all while the bears were inside, watching. The attack might have gone unnoticed for months, if not for a lucky break. Across the channel, in the UK, a cybersecurity firm monitoring suspicious servers saw something strange. A foreign machine, already flagged for previous attacks, suddenly lit up with connections from inside the Bundestag. The firm raised the alarm. The warning passed from desk to desk, crawling through layers of German bureaucracy. 3 whole days passed before anyone acted. By then, the hackers had been inside for nearly 2 weeks. Finally, the Federal Office for Information Security, BSI, sent a special team. Their job? Comb through the logs. Every click, every file opened, every program launched was there. The evidence was undeniable. This wasn't just a virus, it was an invasion. The response was drastic. The entire parliamentary network was ripped offline. For MPs and staffers, it was as if someone had yanked the plug from the wall. Screens went black. Emails stopped mid-sentence. Important documents vanished. Lawmakers stared at frozen screens, stunned. Claudia swore she saw her monitor shut down by itself, like the machine was haunted. And then, before anyone in Parliament could be officially briefed, the press go to wind of it. Der Spiegel published the story. Politicians found out from the news that their systems had been compromised. Chaos erupted. Forensic analysts soon found the smoking gun. Malware called X-Tunnel. Its purpose was simple but deadly. Create a hidden backdoor, a tunnel for the attackers to come and go as they pleased. Digging deeper, investigators uncovered links to a group with a reputation across Europe and America, APT-28, Advanced Persistent Threat. The persistent part was key. These weren't smash-and-grab hackers. They were patient predators, embedding themselves for months or years, exfiltrating data bit by bit. APT-28 had another name, Fancy Bear. Their trail led straight back to the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency, and what they had stolen was massive. 16 gigabytes of data, emails, reports, internal documents. It doesn't sound like much. You can fit it on an old USB stick. But 16 gigabytes of government emails is an ocean of information. The Bundestag hack was more than just espionage. It was a message. If the Russians could walk straight into the heart of Germany's democracy, what else could they do? The answer came a year later, across the Atlantic. But even before that, investigators in Berlin stumbled across something that made their blood run cold. In one of the custom programs used to extract emails, a hacker had made a mistake. The code included a path with a username, Scaramouche, a slip-up that exposed an alias, a trace of the human being behind the mask. For German prosecutors, it was the first thread in a much larger hunt. And so, the story of the Bears begins with a simple email and a single click. The cost? 16 gigabytes of stolen data, a parliament brought to its knees, and the discovery that the digital front lines of war had already shifted into Europe's political core. But this was just the beginning, because the Bears weren't finished. They were just warming up. It was the summer of 2015, and in New York City, cameras flashed as a billionaire with a golden tower made an announcement. No one took C. Seriously, Donald J. Trump was running for president of the United States. At first, the world laughed. He was too loud, too unfiltered, too reckless. But that was exactly why the cameras stayed on him. Every insult, every outrageous claim guaranteed headlines. Build the wall. Mexico will pay for it. Obama founded ISIS. I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose voters. He became impossible to ignore. Half a world away, in Moscow, Vladimir Putin was watching closely. And for him, this wasn't comedy. It was opportunity. Putin's problem wasn't Trump. It was Hillary Clinton. The two had history. In 2011, Clinton, then Secretary of State, publicly questioned the fairness of Russian elections. Her words sparked massive protests on the streets of Moscow. Putin blamed her for it, accused her of meddling in Russia's affairs, and he never forgave her. She had been one of his fiercest critics on the global stage, calling out corruption and election fraud. And now, she was running for president of the United States. To Putin, that was unacceptable. So, he turned to his intelligence services, the Bears. On March 19, 2016, an email landed in the inbox of John Podesta, Clinton's campaign manager. It looked like a standard Google alert. Nothing suspicious, just a note about unusual activity and a link to reset his password. But it wasn't real, it was bait. Podesta, cautious, forwarded the email to an IT staffer at the Democratic National Committee for advice. The staffer made a critical mistake, a single typo. He meant to say the email was illegitimate. Instead, he wrote legitimate. That typo cost the campaign everything. Podesta clicked the link, typed in his credentials, and unknowingly handed the keys to his inbox straight to Fancy Bear. Within hours, hackers had access to thousands of private campaign emails. Before long, they were deep inside the Democrat, Attic Party's digital nervous system. It wasn't just Podesta. The same trick was used on nearly 300 members of Clinton's campaign. Some fell for it, others didn't, but the damage was done. Meanwhile, another Russian group, Cozy Bear, working for Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, was already quietly embedded in the Democrats' network. They'd been there since 2015, moving slowly, stealthily, leaving almost no trace. Here's the irony. The Dutch intelligence service, AIVD, had hacked the building Cozy Bear was working out of. They were literally watching the hackers through security cameras in Moscow. They saw Cozy Bear digging into the DNC. They passed a warning to the FBI. But when the FBI called the DNC, the warning landed with low-level IT staff and was brushed aside. No urgency, no action. The Bears stayed inside. By spring 2016, both Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear had infiltrated the heart of the Democratic Party, operating side by side, unaware of each other, serving different masters, but pushing toward the same target. Then came the leaks. In June 2016, a new online persona appeared, Guccifer 2.0. He claimed to be a lone Romanian hacker. In reality, he was Fancy Bear's mask. Through blogs, emails, and direct messages to journalists, Guccifer began dropping bombshells. stolen DNC documents hit the headlines. Internal emails showed the party favoring Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, sparking outrage among Sanders supporters. Other files exposed Clinton's lucrative Wall Street speeches, fueling accusations she was beholden to big banks. The leaks were devastating. Every headline weakened Clinton's image, amplified division, and handed Trump fresh ammunition. At a rally, Trump openly said, "Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30 pieces emails that are missing." The crowd cheered. That same day, Fancy Bear sent 76 spear-phishing emails to Clinton's staff. Coincidence? Hardly. By October, just weeks before Election Day, WikiLeaks began releasing John Podesta's emails. Not all at once, but drip by drip. Thousands of messages, each one carefully timed for maximum impact. It was psychological warfare, engineered to dominate the news cycle. Clinton could never escape it. Debates, rallies, interviews, everywhere she went, the emails followed. And behind the leaks was more than just stolen data. Russian troll farms, operating out of buildings in St. Petersburg, flooded social media with fake accounts, manipulated memes, and polarizing content. They staged online battles and even organized real protests on U.S. soil. This was no longer spying. This was sabotage. On November 8, 2016, the world watched in shock as Donald Trump became the 45th President of the United States. Could he have won without the hacks and leaks? No one can say for certain, but one thing was undeniable. Russia had interfered in an American election, and they had done it with extraordinary precision. The CIA, FBI, and NSA compiled a classified report, later releasing a redacted version. One line stood out: Moscow will apply lessons learned from its campaign aimed at the U.S. presidential election to future influence efforts worldwide. The message was clear. The Bears had tested a new weapon, and it had worked. Back in Berlin, German officials read the report with alarm. Their own election was less than a year away. If the Bears could shake the foundations of American democracy, what chance did Europe have? And then, a new website appeared online, beatleaks.com. The letters BT stood for Bundestag. Panic spread. Was Germany next? The Bears had made their move in the United States, but they weren't done, not even close. April 2018. At Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, 4 Russian men step off a plane from Moscow. They look like business travelers, casual jackets, rolling luggage, the tired smiles of men on a work trip. Their passports even say they're diplomats. But they are not here for diplomacy. They are here for sabotage. Their names: Alexei Minin, Oleg Zotnikov, Yevgeny Serebryakov, and Alexei Morinets. All 4 belong to a secret unit of the GRU, Russia's military intelligence service. Their specialty is not phishing emails or remote malware. These men are part of what Western agencies call the cleaning crew. When something major threatens Moscow's image abroad, these men are sent to clean it up by hacking, by planting false evidence, by discrediting whoever stands in Russia's way. And this time, their target is one of the most sensitive organizations in the world, the OPC, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Just weeks earlier, the OPC had confirmed a shocking report. Sergei Skripal, a former Russian double agent living in Britain, and his daughter had been poisoned with Novichok, a nerve agent developed in Russia. The world was outraged. Britain pointed the finger directly at the Kremlin. Now, the OPCW's findings threatened to lock Russia's reputation in place as a state sponsor of chemical warfare. The Kremlin needed to fight back, and so the cleaning crew was dispatched. The 4 Russians landed in Amsterdam, rented a small car, and checked into a hotel near The Hague. They even went shopping for supplies: a heavy-duty car battery, cables, and a voltage regulator. To an outsider, it looked like random electronics. In reality, it was the heart of their hacking kit. 2 days later, their mission began. Minin and Sotnikov scouted the OPCW building. They photographed entrances, exits, and even the hotel next door, where they planned to base their operation. Meanwhile, Serebryakov and Morinets wired up the equipment in their rental car. Hidden under a jacket in the trunk was the key, a flat-panel Wi-Fi antenna. The plan was simple but effective: Park close enough to the OPs. Let the antenna broadcast a fake Wi-Fi signal that looked like the organization's real network. Devices inside might auto-connect without suspicion. Once connected, the Russians could steal login credentials and slip into the OPCW's internal systems. If successful, they could discredit the Skripal investigation, leak forged documents, or even steal evidence. But what they didn't know was that from the moment they landed, they were already being hunted. Dutch intelligence, the MIVD, had been tipped off. British intelligence had passed a warning. 4 Fancy Bear operatives were on their way. The MIVD followed them step by step, watching as they photographed buildings, bought electronics, and set up their gear. On April 13th, as the Russians prepared to launch their attack from the hotel parking lot, unmarked vans rolled in. Dutch security forces moved fast. Doors slammed open. Agents swarmed the car. Within seconds, the cleaning crew was pinned to the asphalt, their mission over. One of the Russians frantically kicked at his phone, trying to destroy it. Too late. Everything was seized. Laptops, phones, wads of cash, 20,000 in euros, another 20,000 in US dollars. And one mistake so sloppy it would have been laughable if the stakes weren't so high. In Morinet's bag, investigators found a taxi receipt. It documented a ride straight from the GRU headquarters in Moscow to the airport, the kind of receipt no undercover operative should ever carry. The laptops revealed even more. The 4 weren't just in The Hague, they had been traveling across the globe for years, leaving digital fingerprints everywhere. Serebriakov had hacked into the World Anti-Doping Agency in Switzerland back in 2016, attempting to steal and leak documents that might soften Russia's state-sponsored doping scandal. Later, in 2017, he showed up in Malaysia, targeting the police agency investigating the crash of MH17, the passenger jet shot down over Ukraine by a Russian missile. The cleaning crew had a pattern. Wherever Russia faced a scandal, they followed. They hacked, they planted, they spun the story. Now, caught red-handed, the